Hello and welcome back to the Let's Talk Horse Business podcast with me, George Betson, equestrian business strategist and founder of Fonshore Equine Transport. And today we are in for an absolute gem. Now, most riders know the big brands from Uvex to Cavallor, Bucas, Equipe, but very few know the business side and how those products get to your doorstep or your tack shop. Well, if you are interested in knowing more about this, today you are in for a treat as we go behind the scenes with Simon Middleton, the founder of Zebra Products, who gives us the story behind the business, how the business works, and gives you some really valuable insights on what you could be doing within your business and the industry. So guys, please pop those headphones in, pop the distractions away, and let's get into this. Do you want to just let us know how Zebra Products started and who you are and how this all came about?
Okay, yeah. So I'm Simon Middleton, the MD of Zebra Products. We started 25 years ago. Yeah, this year's been a big year for us in terms of, milestone that we've reached. How it all started, I've always been mad on horses, absolutely mad on horses. I've had a pony since I was 13. And just always been heavily involved in horses. And one area of horses that I was particularly interested in was I was always pretty obsessed with gear. I was always one of those people that was looking at what tack and equipment top riders were using and why they used it. And I'd look at pictures in magazines and think, oh, what saddle's that? What bridle's that? What boots are they using on their horse? So I've always been quite fascinated in that type of thing. So, my career didn't start initially with horses. I started in sales. I used to sell fruit to supermarkets. So that's quite a diverse thing.
Yeah.
I used to sell people at Asda, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, people like that. But I've always sort of had like a selling side of, thing in my career. Then my wife had a livery yard and she also taught people on horses. And some clients of hers sort of approached her and said, would Simon never want to get involved in like his own business? And then he sort of put them in touch with me. And they sort of said to me, would you like your own business? I said, I'd love my own business. And they said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I'd love to be involved selling like premium equestrian products. So they said, well, why don't we do something together? So they had a wholesale irrigation business. And I sort of said, well, how would that work? And they said, well, you would be the sales side of it and we would run the operation side of it. So we set that up and we agreed to start in September 2000. I gave up my job, handed back my company car, and decided to, start my own business at the beginning of September. The Sunday before I was due to start my own business with these guys, I went to a competition on a horse and actually fell off and broke my back. So I spent the first few weeks of the new business in hospital. Then once I was able to be moved around, my wife drove me from shop to shop. And we started basically Zebra Products. We started with one brand initially, which was Lucinda Green Clothing, because obviously we were so new on the scene that we weren't going to get any brands that people particularly knew well. So Lucinda Green were looking for like a sales arm and we collaborated with them. So that's how it all started initially.
Yeah. And actually, I've seen somewhere, you mentioned your horse and falling, but you also... Were you the regional champion? Was it eventing regional champion at one point?
Yeah, I've always been an amateur, but I have always been into eventing. In 1998, I jumped around Blenheim 4-star. And yeah, I've had some really good moments. Very good horses that have given me some good results.
That's good. I mean, were you horsey from like young ages? Did you come from those roots?
I mean, my family are totally not horsey. My family are deeply involved in cycling. My brother was junior national champion. My mother's 84 and still cycles. I come from a proper cycling family and I guess I should have been a cyclist. I'm probably built for that type of thing, but I just had this passion for horses. I don't know where it came from. I was just pretty obsessed and I was very lucky that my parents supported that and gave me the opportunity to follow that dream, but they really had no idea about anything horsey.
The more and more I have these conversations, because I think my perception is that most people in horses are from horsey backgrounds. And the more and more I'm having these conversations, I'm realizing more and more that isn't always the case. Because I too didn't have a horse family. In fact, they weren't particularly for me starting in it. But when I was 15, 16 and could no longer be stopped, I was straight in there on the horses learning and went from there. So yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot more of those people than I realize.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you come from a non-horsey family and you want to do it, it's down to your own drive. There's no one there pushing you. It's, you. And
absolutely. So Zebra Products is a distribution from this, and this is my understanding, so please correct me if I'm wrong. You're a distribution, so you're not really the retailer or the manufacturer. You're actually distributing other people's products. So could you tell us a bit more about how that all works?
Yeah, 100%. So basically, we effectively work like a wholesaler. So we represent the brands we distribute in the UK, and we bring the product over, and then we supply it to retailers and saddle fitters up and down the country. Rather than dealing direct with the brand in, say, Italy and having to pay in euros and having to sort of navigate the whole duty and Brexit situation, we sort of fast track that. They buy from us in sterling and they can buy multiple brands from us. They order at 1:00 and they get the delivery the next day.
Okay. So you're the Equestrian Amazon. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but Amazon's obviously B2C. We're sort of B2B. I'd say we're like how I sort of title it is a premium one-stop shop.
Perfect.
Like sort of a business to business premium one-stop shop.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd love to know, what was your early breakthrough? Because like you say, you started with the Lucinda Green line, and then you must have, was there like some really big milestones which got you to where you are today?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Lucinda Green clothing was obviously our first product range, and we did our first beta in 2001. We had a tiny stand, but it was, we had to sort of save to be able to afford the stand. But we then I had approached a few of the German brands the year before, and one or two of them came to beta, and they sort of then contacted me in 2001 and said, actually, we think we'd like you to represent us as well. So, they were some lucky breaks, and I think it's all about networking. If you do a good job for one brand, they might say to another brand, there's a good company in the UK that maybe you should consider working with. So I think that's probably what's happened. And then bit by bit, the portfolio built up, really.
So really, it's fair to say you went from being sort of a tiny startup, sort of yourself, with and probably a few other people in the background. And then is that sort of how it's grown? And now suddenly...
Yeah, exactly. So basically, we used to piggyback on the back of my original business partner's business. So we used the warehouse facility, we used their stock control system. My wife used to do some of the picking and packing, and I manned the sales side of it. So that was sort of the early days. So we did that from 2000 to 2006. And then I bought my business partners out in 2006, which was a pretty scary thing to do because I had to raise funds to do that. And literally, I went from a salesperson to learning to have to become a business person. But it was absolutely no regrets. And I think that was sort of pivotal in the next stage of the company's development, really.
Was that quite, like you say, it's pivotal stage. Did you have to bring on other people to assist you with that transition, or because you'd been in it for so long, you sort of had a general understanding?
No, I did it, solo, really. I had some of the team around me. I have a long-standing member of staff called Hilary, who's worked for me for nearly 23 years now. So she helped sort of with the migration of all the stock control, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of other help financially, I didn't get anything like that. We had to get a big bank loan, and but basically, yeah, I did have some additional help. My old boss, when I used to sell fruit to supermarkets, he enabled me to utilize his warehouse facility. So when we did the buyout, I moved the operation to his place. So he gave me a leg up, definitely.
I think it's very key time to step in here and just say, sort of goes to show that anybody, if they've got a dream or a will, to achieve something? You know, would you have said back in 2000 that you would today be 25 years in on Zebra products, providing premium brands to the UK and to your wholesalers? Well, retailers, sorry, probably not. So it's very important for people to see that it's possible.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if I even take a moment now and just look at the brands that I represent, I mean, they are without doubt some of the very best in the world. And you something think, wow, this is an honor and privilege. And how did we get here? You know, how did we get here? But I think you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I always say to people, many of my customers in like startup businesses, and I always say to them, never look sideways, never look backwards, always look forwards, because people get obsessed with what their competitors are doing. And I always say, just keep looking forward, follow your own dream. And I try and stick to that, if I'm honest.
It's powerful. I think it'd be great to now understand how do you choose your brands that you're going to work with? So obviously you work with a lot of fantastic large brands, but it sounds like you also work with some smaller clients too, if I'm right and understand what you just said. So how would you work with that? How do you pick those people?
I always try and look for a bit of a uniqueness and something that will add benefit to either the rider or the horse. You know, if I look at, say, the saddle brands, Amerigo and Akit, which come from the same factory in Italy, they started their journey 30 years ago. Together, we've grown with them. I mean, when they first came into the UK, they were relatively unknown. And then we've gone on and had like gold medalists at Olympics and things like that with riders that I've worked with. And I think it's just trying to pick the qualities essential. You know, you can't ever have a product that's going to be of poor quality or maybe have any kind of faults. And then something that adds a technical difference really helps. And just something quite innovative. That's, I guess, what I try and look for and doesn't clash with what I already have in the portfolio.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So you're essentially the invisible middleman on a lot of these brands, essentially. Is that what you would say?
100%. Yeah, I'm definitely Middleton, middleman. Yeah, yeah. No, I am. I'm sort of like, I think I'm probably good at connecting, and like sort of the brands to the consumer, that type of thing. That's probably what I would be good at, I think. I'm not the front man, and I'm not the innovator. I couldn't, I've had times when people have said to me, why don't you design your own brand? But I just know I always try and keep in lane it. This is what we can do and this is what we're good at. And yeah.
I think now would be a fantastic opportunity to sort of understand why you and Zebra Products ended up going for the premium side of distribution. Was there something that led you there specifically, or was that more of a time building exercise?
I think twofold, if I'm honest. When I, in early 2000s, sort of looked into the industry, what I found was that the base of the industry, like sort of the more typical wholesalers, that sold lower price points, they were actually more professional. They were, super organized, ran good logistic hubs, etc. But the premium end, I found that was the less professional. I that was why I sort of dived in at that end, because I think there's more scope to make a difference. And then also, I love really nice gear too. So that's
well, you have said, yeah.
I mean, everything that I sell, I use myself, and and I'm always interested in the products from those brands. Yeah.
So are you actively involved in sort of trend management and liaising with the manufacturers, or is that out of your control?
No, they do, because obviously the UK is an important market globally in the equestrian industry. We can have influence in terms of what we think the market might need or what globally is missing. It might be with, say, a saddle, or we might say we feel that this saddle could be a gap of opportunity in the marketplace, or maybe like, say, with Cavalier, the supplement brand, we identified and worked with them that laminitis is quite a big thing in the UK and probably bigger than in other countries. And we helped work with them to produce a product to help stabilize it, stop it getting any worse. So I think a bit of, we do collaborate with them to try and produce products that suit the UK market, and then hopefully will work globally as well.
Yeah. And I suppose that helps to build the long-term partnerships between you. It's not just about getting them on board and great, we now stock this. It's actually about building a longer-term relationship.
100%. I mean, they're absolutely key to our business, the suppliers, and I see them as business partners, not just suppliers. We've got to work together. I always feel that that's important, and I always try and emulate that where I can with our customers too, that we're in a partnership. It's not hopefully a one-off situation. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I suppose, again, reinforcing the partnership side, would I be right in thinking it's Zebra products that sort of work on behalf of the manufacturers in the support side of the products as well with your retailers? Would that be right to say?
Yeah, we would offer we support the retailers in terms of firstly showing them the product, informing them about it, and then also training them if they have any training needs, and then also obviously supplying them with the product. And they might have point of sale requirements, etc., or maybe they might be at a show where they're going to really feature one of the brands. We will work with them to support them in terms of merchandising and sort of personnel support.
Makes sense. Lovely. In fact, I've written a point here because I've already mentioned it about you're a rider yourself, and that you were the BE 100 Open Regional Champion win at Frickley Park.
Yeah, that's right. That was a nice day. It was a nice day. It was good. And interestingly, like a spin-off from that. So I went to Frickley, won the BE 100 Open Championships, and then now since then we sponsor there every year. And we've created like an amateur sort of competition that they run there called the UVEX Cup. Basically, they run a 3-day event for amateurs, which grassroots level, which is over 80, 90 and 100 centimeters. And we provide to the winner of each section, it's 3 sections, 80, 90, 100. And I think we give them £1,000 UVEX prize for each winner.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And what's really nice, quite often the winner is already riding UVEX, so it's
Yeah.
It's you feel when you sort of giving them the check, it's quite nice to see they're already fans of the brand already.
Yeah. Well, but I'd love to understand how sponsorships work with you guys. So, because in my initial black and white brain, I'm thinking, well, you guys are the distributors for the brand. So how do you sponsor riders or sponsor events? Because the products are technically someone else's, if that's right. It's the way I think about it in black and white. So how does that actually work?
A bit going back to what you said before, the middleman.
Yes.
We bridge the gap between the brand and the competition, because we are responsible for the distribution in the UK, but also the marketing as well. So, we work on ways to make sure the product is sort of gets maximum exposure. So we work out the best way to do that. So we organize, it might be that we sponsor a competition, like I just mentioned about the UVEX Cup, or it might be that we sponsor and support a top rider like Ros Cantor or Laura Collett. So we have different ways we try and do it, really, depending on what we're trying to achieve.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Now I understand now. So you have the UK marketing sort of control for that brand, or
effectively we manage and control the brand in the UK.
Okay. Makes sense. And how do you go about choosing riders and events and other things to support? Because I know you do it a lot already. So is it literally the big names, or is it more of a process?
We have picked riders often when they're sort of like rising stars. We have done that, and then just stuck with them and got lucky. I think because I do ride, you can identify a talent and see if people are going to go places. We've done that with a number of people. We collaborated with Ros Cantor quite early on, before she won the World Championships. She actually bought her first saddles from us, her Keep saddles, and then we've just sort of grown that, and she's now obviously double 5-star winner this year, or treble 5-star winner this year. I'm not quite sure what it is. And then Laura Collett, again, we've sort of worked with her all for quite a long time and sort of grown with her. we just sort of pick the riders we think will do well and also fit the brand.
Yes.
We want longevity. We don't want people sort of dipping in and out because that isn't good for them or for us, really.
And would you say you've had your fair share of people who you have supported and perhaps are not around anymore, or sort of they dropped you or you dropped them? Has that happened?
We tend to always end up supporting people in some way or other right the way through.
Yeah.
We don't do a lot with Carl Hester now, but we would be his longest supporting sponsor.
Okay. Wow.
We only do it in a small way with Spranger Bits,
Yes.
but we've been with him for a long time. I think since 2003. I think.
Wow.
So because we've got like a lot of nice brands, it might be that they move to another brand normally due to financial reasons. If I'm honest, it might be that another brand offers them a very nice package that we can't match, but then it might be that we have another brand that we already work with them with that carries on. So I wouldn't say we've had I can't think of any big fallouts we've had with anyone, really. It's always been nice. It's always been positive.
Yeah. Probably testament to the culture that you're building and the way you've built the business, to be honest. It sounds like it's been built really. Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah. It's a small world out there. So you try and do your best to make it work with everyone, really.
Would you have any tips for anybody that is building a brand? Perhaps they are at that back in 2000 where you were once upon a time and they're thinking of building a brand. Any tips that you would give to them?
Yeah, I think initially, as I said, when we started with Lucinda Green Clothing, we didn't have any marketing budget at all. So it's just trying to take advantage of opportunities as much as you can, really. There's always an opportunity. We started in 2000. 2001 was our first full year, but 2001 was the year of foot and mouth. So the whole industry was in chaos. A lot of other equestrian businesses just shut down. They just literally went into hibernation because of this awful situation that was going on in the industry. We couldn't do that because we needed as much money as we could. So I just tried to get as many opportunities as I could with as limited budget as I could. I remember there was a big horse show that actually was taking place at the XL Arena where the London Horse Show takes place now, and it was called Equus. And they had, I think it was taking place in sort of March, April time, and they had the Spanish Riding School as their act for their show. But obviously because of foot and mouth, Spanish Riding School couldn't travel. So I rang them up and just said, "Oh, I understand you've lost your act. What about if we worked with you with Lucinda Green and she would come over and do some kind of teach like a lecture demonstration?" They said, "Yeah, great, okay." So I just picked up the phone and gave it a chance, and then I remember that Lucinda was there, and we also then contacted the Daily Mail to tell them, and just tried to just basically take advantage of every opportunity that you can, really, and don't be afraid to pick the phone up.
Where do you think that comes from for you? Because there'll be people that would be very worried about doing that. And I know you've mentioned that you were once in sales. Well, obviously you're still in sales, but you were you have a background of doing that. Do you think that's helped you to be able to do that?
I think so. I mean, the worst people can say is no, isn't it? That's the worst people can say. And I think you've always just got to remember that. And just don't be afraid to give it a go, really. I think more so in this day and age where people pick the phone up less and less because it's so easy to email, message, WhatsApp, et cetera, I think. But you can't beat actually meeting up with people or actually reaching out to them.
I think there's definitely a fear or there's something in that where people now are more worried about the no's. They're worried about the rejection. And I guess without asking the question, you aren't opening yourself up to the opportunities.
Yeah, I always think you never lose, you learn. That's, everything you go through, you always learn from it, and give it a go. That's what I sort of think too.
Is there anything that you would do, talking about learning, is there anything that you would do differently now you're 25 years ahead back in 2000?
There's bits you look back and you think, oh, maybe if I'd done that, I would have had this, or maybe I would have not got here. But again, I try not to look back because it's all part of the learning process, really. I think that regrets are not positive and they don't really, it's just all, everything you do, you learn from it, really. And I think that's how I view it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
no, I
no,
don't
it's
think
really
I have anything that like beats me up that says, "Oh, I wished I'd never done that," because it's all I've learned from everything that's gone right or wrong, really.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's really valuable. I think in this day and age, we're so worried about the no's. We're so worried about, oh, we should have done this differently, what ifs, and so on and so forth. But without those lessons in life, you don't end up getting to where you end up in the end, which usually is somewhere close to what you always wanted in one way or another anyway. That's how I feel about it. So Zebra Products are now a team of 20 or more. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got 20 people, which is pretty nice, really nice.
Yeah.
Really good team, actually, really good team.
And do you know what? I feel awful. The lady that actually I got introduced to before I got introduced to yourself, I met a beta and I cannot remember her name.
Sally.
Who is it? Sally. Yeah, she was lovely. We actually ended up going into the venue and out of the venue together because she had a friend with her and she was great. But she was like, no, you need Simon. You need Simon.
Sally would be fine. I mean, Sally's on our social posts quite a lot. We do Sally Talks Tack. So she does like weekly chats about saddles and bridles, etc. She's really good in front of the camera. Much better than me.
Well, she was very keen that I speak to you. I think she would have. I think she was up for it as well, but she was like, "Oh no, you'd be great." So I do thank you for that. I did write down a quote that you have said, which is you made a comment that during COVID, the company feels like it did 20 years ago: lean, tight ship, everyone mucking in. So, what actually happened for you during COVID for that comment to have come out?
It was a bit like starting up again. I mean, we, like many businesses, unfortunately furloughed quite a lot of people because, obviously we didn't know what was going to happen. And, there was the opportunity to do that by what the government had presented. So we literally reduced the team down to five people. And literally I was back on the front line selling. I had one person here called Jess, who was originally a warehouse assistant. Then she became warehouse manager. So she then became purchase manager. But while she was in the office on sort of the COVID time, she was picking, packing orders and ordering the stock as well. Then I had another person, Catherine, who's our customer service manager. She was taking orders on the telephone and email and also packing them as well. I was creating the sales. And then behind the scenes, I had a credit controller collecting the money and then our accountant. And that was the team, really. So it was just like how we were 20 years before, really.
Right.
And it was good because it gets you back to the grassroots of it and the pulse of what really happens and what you need to do to make your customers satisfied, really.
Yeah. So did you find that period, whilst it was horrendous in many ways, actually helped you to make the company as what it is today? Has that affected how you've come out of it?
Yeah, definitely. I think sort of going back to the front line definitely helped me gauge what works and what doesn't work. Like I said, what customers need and what they don't need. Yeah, I think it definitely helped the next sort of episode of the business, really.
So in every business, we all experience problems, but obviously the problems vary from size, shape, and so on. So I'd love to understand a business that's so well established as yours, what your biggest operational headaches are these days, whether it might be stock, logistics, your currencies, the Brexit issues, seasonality.
What's our biggest challenge? I wouldn't say we have any big challenges. We have a few mini challenges.
Okay.
Obviously, the Brexit one, I think we've navigated through that now. We know how to make that work.
Yes.
It does delay things, and there's obviously an extra cost to everyone because of it. In terms of FX, currencies, etc. Again, I think we obviously can't control it, but we know how to manage that as best as we can. Stock control, on the whole, it's good. There are certain times there's bumps in the road that you just have to work around. Like a few years ago, there was the situation with the Suez Canal, when that was blocked and product from China was struggling to come through. So that caused a bit of a delay with some of the suppliers, which completely was out of our hands. Then there might be problems with, say, raw materials. But again, it's just trying to work with your supplier, trying to get real-time information that you can pass on to your customers, really.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I don't think we have any, touch wood, huge problems, thankfully.
Mm.
But it's just like mini bumps in the road that you just have to keep managing really all the time.
Yeah, and it sounds like as a distributor, generally the biggest operational headaches for you probably will be things that are out of your control, like products getting to where they should be, and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have sometimes like, on the whole, we use a courier to deliver all our goods. Might be a parcel might go missing and it can seem like, the end of the world, but in reality, it's not the end of the world. And it's just trying to deal with that as best as you can, as quickly as you can, really.
Absolutely. I'd love to find out what you've learned about leadership in the niche that is equestrian business. So it's a challenging space, and you've obviously navigated it as a rider and now as a successful brand. Is there anything that really sticks out to you about what makes you go the extra mile in such a difficult, small niche industry?
I think people like people, and I think that it always reminds me of that when if you go to a customer's, a retailer's shop or go and meet them at their offices, I think you can't beat that. I think in this day and age with emails, virtual meetings, it's very easy to not get out your office and go and see people. And I think that you have to keep doing that. And it's important to take time out to do that, particularly even like me as the owner of the company. It would be easy for me to sit here and not leave and just let other people go and do it, but I enjoy meeting the customers, seeing what they're doing, learning about the market, going to horse shows, seeing what's happening, seeing what the trends are, and I think that helps a lot, really.
So it's essentially really you need to lead by being active in your space, but also being aware, which I think most of us are. If we're in the equestrian space, we generally we're more emotive and more connected people. So we like to have that one-to-one connection and not, that's essentially, I think, what you were sort of saying.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think the industry does like that. I mean, when I sold to supermarkets, you literally had half an hour meeting with a buyer. You couldn't really, there was no chit chat, you didn't really get personal, ask about their family, their spare time. Whereas this industry, it's people like people. And I think that's what's so nice about it, really, that you can sort of get to know people, make good friendships and help each other, really. I think that is what's quite special about the industry, really.
Special and unique. There's nowhere really in the industry, even with the big brands, that it's like a big corporate. It's, like you've just said about supermarkets, it's generally much more personal, I think. So on that note of equestrian retail and speaking to people, where do you think the industry is going? Because you must see quite a lot of what's going on being in the middle. Is it, when I say where are we going, is it going all more online? Are we going to be staying with our bricks and mortar tack shops? Is it all about tech? How do you feel like that's going?
I think online will always be strong. I think that will grow and grow. But I think there'll also become more need for experts and advice that people need. Years ago, people used to go into saddleries and there'd be a person behind the counter who was a knowledgeable horse person. You could ask them about what bit that you need for your horse, what bandages you recommended, etc., etc. I think that over the years, as the industry's got bigger, has in some areas disappeared. And obviously online, it's difficult to do that. So I think online will keep growing, but I think there'll become more need for advice and knowledge that people require, because a lot of the people in the industry now are not from like horse backgrounds. They're like me, they from like normal backgrounds, and there's not that sort of built-in family horse knowledge. So I think there'll be more and more requirement for advice. Yeah, I think that will be how I see it changing a bit.
Yeah. And do you think how you as a distributor is changing at all over the next few years, or is that still very much looking like it's going to be the same in 5 years' time?
I think there'll be areas that will be similar, and again, there'll be areas that will be a bit different. I think the shops and the online businesses are definitely getting much more professional. So they want professional support in every area in terms of sort of marketing, content that you give them in terms of for their social media or for their website. I think that area is definitely something that's needed and will keep growing. And also, I think training is really important. This year we've held maybe 4 seminars and 3 webinars, and they're very popular. I think people have a thirst for knowledge, which is good. And I think that can only be positive. So I think rather than just classic selling, I think people want to know more about products now and the research that's gone into them and where the thought was that made a brand design a product, really. So I think it's not just like a classic show sell industry anymore. You have to do a lot more work behind it because people are informed. They look things up, they know about things, but they want to know even more all the time, really.
I think I've experienced that exactly in that there's a lot of things I see online these days, and I'm like, well, what do you trust? What's actually true? Is there so much information out there now? You've got AI, able to give you pages of information, but actually, what do we know and believe to be true? And I guess by having that connection and that training about your products, but also the connection of the people who are probably also using the products, you then get a much more true and experienced advice, which I find really, I wasn't going to say it, but I will. Men's hair loss products, okay? It's all over all over my social media. And I see thousands of different brands, and it's like,
It doesn't work.
they all say something slightly different, and you're like, well, what is actually the truth? What actually does work and doesn't work? So that's what it was making me think of.
Yeah, no, I think there's so much information out there. It's just trying to cut through it all and work out what's genuine and what isn't, really.
So we're getting towards the end of the show, so I'd love to get a few quick fire sort of questions about, well, some areas that you could advise people. So if you're a new equestrian brand wanting UK distribution, what would you say to a brand that's looking for?
So basically, you're saying a UK brand that's looking for distribution, or any brand?
A new equestrian brand wanting UK distribution. So they might not be in the UK, but they want to be distributed here.
I think the first thing is checking the fit. There's no point if you're new, fledgling brand, and then you go to a huge company within the industry that's your brand isn't going to be important. It's just the fit, I think, is you've got, you as a brand holder, owner, you've put a lot of effort, time, money into your brand. So you need to make sure you work with someone who believes in it and can help you take that brand forward, really. Biggest isn't always best. It's the fit. It's the fit. That would be what I would say.
And a new, a small retailer wanting to level up or attract premium brands. So from the retailer's point of view, what should they be doing?
Specialize, I think.
Okay.
If they're small, I wouldn't call it small. I call it boutique, or, I wouldn't say it's small. I would say specialize. I mean, if you're smaller or new, you will never have the stock holding like a very established business will have. So I would say choose which way you go, whether you're going to be like a normal and then just take time growing, or specialize. It might be that you specialize in safety products, or you specialize in, maybe sort of horse equipment, or you specialize in bridles or something like that. That would be what I would say, because you can't, as a saddlery, the product range is so diverse. You could have someone stocking a bucket or a saddle, it's very unique. And obviously it's very difficult to do all of it. So that would be what I would suggest.
Okay. And then finally, if there's a young person that wants a career in the equestrian industry, based on your experience and how you got started, what advice would you give them about finding that right career for them?
I think it's a great industry to be involved in. There's a lot of opportunities. There's people that come in and really develop, and things can really happen for you. I think work out what you're good at and what will suit you, and then try and find that place for yourself, really. It's being honest with yourself. There's no point if you want to get in the industry and you think, I'm going to be into sales. If you don't like sales or you feel uncomfortable with it, don't do that. There's other areas that you could specialize in. It might be you're uncomfortable in sales, but you have a great thirst for knowledge. So you might be better going down like a nutritionist type route, or, different, or like a bit fitting route, or bridle fitting, or saddle fitting. Work out what suits your skill set and follow that. But there's definitely scope. If you've got a horse passion, there's a scope for everyone in the industry, really. Definitely.
One final thought, which has just come to me based on my childhood, which was did my family prefer me not to ride, but when I was riding, they made it quite clear that they felt it wasn't a career. It wasn't something that you could do and make money out of. So you got to go to university and so on. And that's what I ended up doing. What would you say to that person today if they came to you and said, I love horses, but I'm being told it couldn't possibly be a career? Is it true?
I think within the industry, if you like horses, there's a scope for lots of career opportunities. It's just trying to find the right one that suits you. Like I knew it when I was riding it, I wasn't going to be a world champion, so there's no point sort of trying to go down there if you know that you can't do that. So it's just trying to find an area that you can do. And I think you can make a success of your passion because it's a passion, and you can, if you're passionate about something, it'll shine right through. So I think don't ever be put off by that. Follow your dream because it'll work. Just stick to it. That's what I would say. I was lucky because my family was steeped in cycling, which I'm obviously not, but my father was a very keen cyclist, and he gave up his job and then opened a bike shop. So he did that. So it worked for him. And so I guess I saw that. And subliminally, my father died quite young, which he's never seen zebra, but I always feel like he'd be looking down and thinking, good, you've done what I did. You've followed your passion and it's worked out. And I think everyone can do the same, really.
I think it's really, really, really important to do. I think not enough people follow their passion, particularly in the equestrian space, through some fears of whether it can be or whether it's, what that would look like. And I think there's also a lack of knowledge in the space how to run and hold a business, because I think this is just my thoughts on it, is that a lot of people have horses and enjoy horses, as you did and as I did, and they think, oh, well, it sort of builds up organically, but by accident, and they haven't really thought it through. And I think that's where people end up going wrong. But still, following the passion is probably the right way to go, I would say.
And again, go and ask people, if you want to do something, go and ask someone that's already doing it. What do you think about this? Get advice, and a bit like what I said earlier, don't be afraid to pick up the phone, go and chat to someone, because you can never lose by doing that.
Yeah. I think that's really important. But part of me wonders if there's a certain amount of people that would not want to help others because it might affect their gain. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you believe that might be the case?
I understand that. I mean, I wouldn't do that because I think people have helped me, and I would do all I can to help anyone else. It's that if they don't help you, then there'll be someone else that will help, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's true. No, I was thinking more specifically for my industry, but maybe that's my perception of it. Maybe it isn't like that, but my way of seeing it. So I'm in the horse transport industry. My way of seeing it, particularly where I'm based, is that everyone is in it for themselves. They couldn't have any care of anyone else, so they're just in it for themselves, which might be totally a bad way that I see it, but that's the way it feels.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe then perhaps rather than speak to someone in your area, maybe speak to someone out of your area who you're not going to be a threat to, or in another country or something. Maybe find someone else that you can chat to, or it might be someone that potentially could be a client of your business that you ask, what do you think about this? Because they will, rather than ask a direct potential competitor, maybe ask a potential customer, what do you think? Then there's no conflict of interest then, really.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're coming towards the end of the show. To finish up, where can people find Zebra, and is there anywhere that you'd want them to go specifically to find out a bit more about what you do?
The website sort of gives a basic details about the company. I'd say one of the areas which we've grown quite well in is our social media channels, which is really, I always find really odd and unusual, but also I'm grateful for, because we are effectively a wholesaler, and we have more followers than some of our brands do, which is quite odd because we're a middleman. Like if you think of the middleman of Coca-Cola, I think it's Schweppes. Do people ever go on Schweppes' website, social media channels? Probably not. I don't know. It's quite unusual. I think that's maybe because of the branding, and maybe because of the, we try and make it interesting. But I'd say to get to know us best, probably follow our social So
perfect. And no, that's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I think it's been very insightful for anyone that has a brand, but also for equestrian businesses, and actually how by staying the distance, putting in the time, building connections, you can absolutely build an equestrian business regardless of what particular space that's in. I think that's a very short summary of essentially our conversation today. Would you agree?
yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
No, and thank you for coming on and giving me your time. And yeah, thank you very much.